Little girl goes to treat worms, but what the exam reveals makes the doctor call 911 in panic. Before we dive into the story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. With her stomach cramping painfully, 6-year-old Ivy still managed to fill Waffles' food bowl before pressing button, her worn teddy bear, against her aching belly. The small dog wagged his tail gratefully, unaware of his young owner's discomfort. "It's okay, Button," she whispered, her voice barely audible in the dim morning light filtering through the apartment blinds. "We have to be quiet, so Marcus can sleep." Ivy moved like a shadow through the small apartment, placing a glass of water beside her teenage brother's door. He'd be thirsty when he woke up. He always was. The door was plastered with "keep out" signs, but she knew he needed water. Caring for others came naturally to Ivy, even when her own small body hurt. The apartment was silent except for the distant hum of traffic. Mom was already gone for her first shift at the hospital cafeteria. Dad wouldn't be back until evening from his trucking route. And Marcus, well, Marcus stayed in his room with his headphones and his bad moods. Ivy and Button had a secret language, one where words weren't needed. When Button's worn button eyes looked at something, Ivy knew it was important. When she hugged him tight against her stomach, he absorbed the pain that had been growing worse each day. "Is it bad again?" came her father's unexpected voice. Ivy turned, startled to see him standing in the hallway. He rarely changed his routine. "Just a little," she lied, even as another cramp made her wince. Her father sighed, running a hand through his thinning hair. "Your mother mentioned it yesterday. I called in late to my shift." His voice was gruff but not unkind. "We should get you checked out before it gets worse." 20 minutes later, they sat in a bright waiting room that smelled of antiseptic and lemon cleaner. Ivy clutched Button tighter as her name was called. Dr. Evelyn had kind eyes and a voice that reminded Ivy of the teacher who once gave her a gold star for a drawing. She asked questions that Dad answered impatiently. "Probably just worms from playing on the floor," he said with a dismissive wave. "Kids get them all the time. Just give her the medicine and we'll be on our way." But Dr. Evelyn's eyes stayed on Ivy, noticing how the little girl held herself carefully, how thin her arms were beneath her long-sleeved shirt, how she whispered only to her teddy bear. "Let's run some tests to be sure," the doctor said, her voice gentle but firm. "Ivy, would you like Button to get examined first?" It was the first time anyone had spoken directly to Button. Ivy's eyes widened slightly as she nodded. Dr. Evelyn pretended to listen to Button's heart and check his worn, floppy ears. "Button seems healthy, but worried about you. Should we check you too?" Another tiny nod. During the examination, Ivy lay perfectly still, her father scrolling through his phone in the corner of the room. When the doctor pressed gently on Ivy's stomach, she noticed the girl didn't cry out, but her knuckles turned white as she gripped Button tighter. "We'll need an ultrasound," Dr. Evelyn said, her tone deliberately casual, "just to see what's happening inside." As the cold gel touched Ivy's skin, she finally whispered, "Button says it hurts most at night." The doctor nodded, moving the wand carefully across the small belly. Her expression changed when she looked at the screen, a subtle tightening around her eyes. Something wasn't right. "I'll be right back," Dr. Evelyn said, her voice still steady. "Button can keep you company." In the hallway, she pulled out her phone and made a call, her voice low and urgent. Behind her, through the partially open door, she could see Ivy placing Button carefully over the room's emergency call button, hiding it, protecting it, just as she seemed to be protecting something else. The doctor's instincts told her this was just the beginning of a much deeper story. Dr. Evelyn returned to the examination room with a practiced smile, though her mind was racing. Ivy sat perfectly still, Button now clutched tightly against her chest. "Ivy, I'd like to run a few more tests. Would it be okay if you stay with us for a little while?" she asked gently. Ivy's father checked his watch with a frown. "How long is this going to take? I've got to get back to work." It might be a few hours, Dr. Evelyn explained. Perhaps there's someone who could stay with Ivy while we complete the tests. After a quick phone call, Ivy's father informed them that Uncle Caleb would arrive soon. He helps watch Ivy sometimes. He's good with her. As her father prepared to leave, Ivy's eyes followed him, but she remained silent. Only when the door closed did she whisper something to Button. "What did you say, Ivy?" Dr. Evelyn asked. "Button says it's okay. Dad needs to work," she replied softly. While they waited for the additional tests, Dr. Evelyn offered Ivy a notebook and colored pencils. "Would you like to draw something for Button?" Ivy nodded, carefully selecting a blue pencil. As she drew, Dr. Evelyn glimpsed a house with separate rooms, each family member isolated in their own space. "Can you tell me about your home, Ivy?" the doctor asked. Instead of answering directly, Ivy turned to a new page and began drawing again. This time, a bottle appeared with a red X across it. Beside it, she drew a boy with an unusually large head and jagged lines emanating from his eyes. Dr. Evelyn noticed how Ivy's hand trembled slightly. "Is that your brother?" she asked. Ivy nodded without looking up. "And what are these lines coming from his eyes?" "That's when Marcus gets spiky," she whispered. "Button says we should be extra quiet then." Before Dr. Evelyn could ask more questions, the door opened, and a man in his early 30s entered. He had kind eyes and carried a small bag. "Uncle Caleb." For the first time, Ivy's voice rose above a whisper, though she didn't look directly at him. "Hey, Ivy Bug," he said warmly. "Your dad called. Said you weren't feeling well." Dr. Evelyn introduced herself and explained they needed to run more. As they spoke, she observed the unusual dynamic between Ivy and her uncle. The girl clearly recognized his voice with joy, yet she averted her eyes when he approached, clutching Button tighter. "I brought someone who's been missing you," Caleb said, opening the bag to reveal a small, fluffy dog. "Waffles." Ivy's face lit up as the dog immediately jumped onto the examination table and curled protectively against her side. Dr. Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "Normally, we don't allow—" "He's very clean," Caleb assured her, "and he and Ivy are inseparable. I thought it might help her feel more comfortable." The doctor nodded, noticing how Ivy visibly relaxed with the dog beside her. She continued drawing, now adding Waffles to her picture, the dog standing guard outside a door. As a nurse came to take Ivy for her tests, Dr. Evelyn pulled Uncle Caleb aside. "How often do you care for Ivy?" she asked carefully. "A few times a week. My sister works double shifts and her husband's on the road a lot. Marcus is supposed to watch her, but—" He trailed off. "But," Dr. Evelyn prompted. "He's got his own issues. Teenager stuff," Caleb said, though his expression suggested there was more to it. When Ivy returned, she looked pale and tired. As she climbed back onto the bed, Dr. Evelyn noticed how she methodically arranged her small world. Waffles on her left, Button on her right, and the notebook open before her. In the new drawing, Ivy had sketched a dog with a single tear. Social worker who had joined them whispered to Dr. Evelyn, "He seems to care for her. Maybe too much?" nodding toward Caleb. But the doctor's attention was on Ivy's newest drawing, a medicine cabinet with something mysterious inside. The little girl was trying to tell them something in the only language she knew how to use. Outside the window, the afternoon shadows grew longer, mirroring the shadows in Ivy's silent world. As evening approached, the hospital hallways quieted. In Ivy's room, the soft beeping of monitors created a gentle rhythm that almost masked the tension in the air. Dr. Evelyn studied the test results with a furrowed brow, while Uncle Caleb sat beside Ivy's bed, reading her a story about a brave little boat. The boat wasn't afraid of the storm because it knew how to be strong, he read, his voice warm and steady. Ivy listened intently. Waffles curled against her. Side and Button clutched in her small hands. When a nurse entered with medication, Ivy's eyes widened slightly. She watched carefully as the nurse measured the dose, then immediately picked up Button and pretended to give him medicine too. Dr. Evelyn noticed this curious mimicry. "Does Button need medicine like you do, Ivy?" The little girl nodded solemnly. Button says medicine makes the hurt go away. Does Button hurt sometimes? Dr. Evelyn asked gently. Ivy shook her head. Not Button, the big boy. Uncle Caleb and Dr. Evelyn exchanged glances. Marcus? Caleb asked. Does your brother take medicine, Ivy? Instead of answering, Ivy buried her face in Button's worn fur. Waffles lifted his head, suddenly alert, as if sensing her discomfort. Ms. Bennett, the social worker, entered the room with a gentle smile. Hello, Ivy. I'm Lisa. I help Dr. Evelyn take care of children. She sat on the edge of the bed, noticing how Ivy instinctively shifted closer to her uncle while still not looking directly at him. I'd love to hear about your drawings. Ivy cautiously pushed her notebook forward. Ms. Bennett turned the pages slowly, pausing at the drawing of the boy with spiky lines coming from his eyes. This is interesting. Can you tell me about this person? Ivy glanced at Uncle Caleb before answering. That's when Marcus gets spiky. Button says we should hide when that happens. Hide where? Ms. Bennett asked. In the quiet place. Ivy pointed to another drawing, a small closet with a stick figure inside, with Button and Waffles. As they talked, Dr. Evelyn pulled Uncle Caleb into the hallway. We found something concerning in Ivy's tests. There are traces of medication in her system that shouldn't be there. Adult medication. Caleb's expression shifted from concern to alarm. What? How is that possible? We're not sure yet, but combined with her symptoms and these drawings, she left the implication hanging in the air. You don't think Caleb started, his voice rising. We're not accusing anyone, Dr. Evelyn assured him quickly. We're just trying to understand what's happening with Ivy. Back in the room, Ms. Bennett was making progress. Ivy, can you tell me who gives you medicine at home? The little girl looked down at Button. After a moment, she whispered something to the teddy bear. What did Button say? Ms. Bennett prompted. Button says I'm not supposed to tell. Marcus says Waffles will have to go away if I tell. Ms. Bennett kept her expression neutral despite the alarm bells ringing in her mind. Button can tell me. It's safe here. Ivy held Button up to her ear, as if listening, then shook her head. Button is scared too. When Ivy's mother arrived after her shift, she looked exhausted but worried. She hugged Ivy tightly, then turned to Dr. Evelyn with questions in her eyes. We need to talk about some test results, Dr. Evelyn said quietly. As they stepped outside, Ivy turned to a fresh page in her notebook and began to draw rapidly. This time she sketched a medicine bottle, herself watching from behind a door, and a hand reaching for the bottle. The images were childlike but conveyed a story she couldn't yet tell with words. Uncle Caleb watched her draw, his expression unreadable. Is that something you've seen at home, Ivy Bug? She nodded without looking up, continuing to draw with intense focus. In the hallway, Dr. Evelyn explained the situation to Ivy's mother, whose face crumpled with confusion and worry. There must be some mistake, she insisted. No one would give her medication. She's just a little girl. As they talked, none of them noticed Marcus arrive at the end of the corridor, his hands shoved deep in his pockets, his eyes darting nervously from side to side. Inside the room, Waffles suddenly sat up, ears alert, a low growl rumbling in his throat as he stared at the door. Waffles' growl deepened as Marcus appeared in the doorway. The teenager leaned against the frame, his lanky frame casting a long shadow into the room. Hey, Squirt, he said to Ivy, his voice flat. Mom made me come. Uncle Caleb stood up, positioning himself subtly between Marcus and the bed. Good to see you, Marcus. Your sister's had quite a day. Marcus shrugged, his eyes darting around the room, pausing briefly on Ivy's notebook. Whatever. How long does she have to stay here? Before anyone could answer, Ivy's mother and Dr. Evelyn returned. The tension in the room shifted as everyone tried to appear normal for Ivy's sake. Marcus, you came, his mother said with tired surprise. Didn't have a choice, did I? He muttered. Dr. Evelyn observed the family dynamics carefully. Ivy had gone completely still, Button held protectively over her notebook. Waffles remained alert, his small body pressed against Ivy's side. "Mrs. Miller, I'd like to speak with each of you individually," Dr. Evelyn said. "It might help us understand Ivy's condition better." As the adults stepped outside to organize this, Ms. Bennett stayed with Ivy and Marcus. The social worker noticed how Ivy's eyes followed her uncle as he left, a flicker of anxiety crossing her face. "Marcus, would you like to see your sister's drawings?" Ms. Bennett asked, attempting to create a connection. The teenager slouched into a chair. "Not really. I think they're quite remarkable." She continued, undeterred. "Ivy has created her own visual language." Ivy whispered something to Button, her eyes never leaving her brother. "What was that, Ivy?" Ms. Bennett encouraged. "Button says Marcus doesn't like pictures," she said softly. Marcus rolled his eyes. "Can we not do the stupid bear thing? She's too old for that." Ms. Bennett noticed how Ivy shrank back at her brother's dismissive tone. "Actually, Button is a wonderful way for Ivy to express herself. Many children use transitional objects to—" "Whatever," Marcus interrupted, pulling out his phone. Outside the room, Dr. Evelyn was explaining her concerns to Ivy's parents and Uncle Caleb. The tests showed traces of prescription medication, specifically a type of anti-anxiety medication that's only prescribed to adults. "We need to understand how this got into her system." "That's impossible," Mrs. Miller insisted. "We don't even keep medications at home except for basic pain relievers." "Are you sure?" Dr. Evelyn pressed gently. "No prescriptions for anyone in the family?" Mrs. Miller hesitated. "Well, my mother takes several medications for her heart condition, but she lives across town. And I think Marcus was prescribed something last year for his anxiety, but he stopped taking it." Uncle Caleb's expression changed. "Wait, Marcus was prescribed medication? I didn't know that." "It was just for a little while," Mrs. Miller explained defensively, "after the incident at school, but he said it made him feel weird, so the doctor said he could stop." Dr. Evelyn made a note. "Do you still have this medication at home?" "It should be in our medicine cabinet, but it hasn't been touched in months." Back in the room, Ms. Bennett was making progress with Ivy through Button. She had discovered that the teddy bear could answer questions that Ivy found too difficult to address directly. "Button, can you tell me what happens when Marcus gets spiky?" Ms. Bennett asked. Ivy held Button to her ear, listening intently, then spoke in a slightly different voice. Button's voice. "He yells, he throws things, he says it's too loud in his head. And what do you and Ivy do when that happens?" "We hide in the quiet place with waffles," Button answered through Ivy, "until the spiky goes away." Ms. Bennett nodded encouragingly. "And does anyone help when Marcus feels this way?" Button was silent for a moment. Then, "Sometimes he takes the pills from the high cabinet, the ones in the bottle with the white cap." This revelation hung in the air as Dr. Evelyn returned with Ivy's parents. She noticed the significant look Ms. Bennett gave her. "Ivy, would you like to draw what happens at home when you don't feel well?" Dr. Evelyn suggested, handing her a fresh sheet of paper. The little girl took the paper carefully and began to draw. This time the image showed a small figure, clearly Ivy, watching from behind a partially open door, as a larger figure reached into a cabinet. In the cabinet was a bottle, carefully detailed with a white cap. "This is beautiful drawing, Ivy," Dr. Evelyn said. "Can you tell me what's happening here?" Ivy looked at Button, then at Waffles, who had finally relaxed his guard position. "This is what I do when my tummy hurts at home," she whispered. "And what happens next?" Dr. Evelyn prompted. Ivy turned to a new page and drew another picture, the same small figure now holding a similar bottle with a white cap. The adults exchanged concerned glances as the pieces began to fall into place. Not accusation, not judgment, just understanding slowly. Dawning. In the corner, Marcus slouched deeper into his chair, his face partially hidden by his hoodie, but his eyes were fixed on Ivy's drawings with an expression that mingled fear and shame. Outside the window, the day had faded to evening, but inside room 204, light was finally beginning to shine on Ivy's silent world. Dr. Evelyn retreated to her office, closing the door behind her. The clock on the wall showed 8:47 p.m., nearly 14 hours since Ivy had first arrived at the hospital. She rubbed her tired eyes and spread Ivy's drawings across her desk, looking for patterns, for clues, for anything that might help her understand the full picture. This case had gotten under her skin in a way few others had. Perhaps it was the silent dignity of the little girl, or the way she cared for others even while in pain herself. Whatever it was, Dr. Evelyn felt personally invested in uncovering the truth. "What are you trying to tell us, Ivy?" she whispered to the colorful pages. There was a soft knock at the door. Ms. Bennett entered with 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you might need this," she said, placing 1 cup on the desk. "The Millers are with Ivy now. Marcus went to the cafeteria with his uncle." Dr. Evelyn nodded gratefully. "What's your read on the family?" Ms. Bennett considered the question carefully. "The parents are overwhelmed but caring. They're not neglectful by choice but by circumstance, working multiple jobs, barely staying afloat financially. And Marcus? Troubled. Classic signs of untreated anxiety, possibly depression. He's acting as a caretaker when he needs care himself." She paused. "The uncle is interesting. He seems genuinely devoted to Ivy, yet she shows mixed signals around him. She clearly loves him but won't look directly at him." Dr. Evelyn picked up one of Ivy's drawings, the one with Uncle Caleb making food while Ivy watched from a distance. "I think there's something there we're missing," she said. "I'm going to speak with Mr. Miller alone first, then Mrs. Miller." Mr. Miller sat stiffly in the consultation room, his trucker's cap twisted in his hands. Up close, Dr. Evelyn could see the exhaustion etched in the lines of his face. "Dr. Evelyn, just tell me what's wrong with my daughter so we can fix it and get back to normal." "Mr. Miller, there's no simple diagnosis here," she explained gently. "Ivy's physical symptoms, the stomach pain, the weight loss, they're real, but they may be connected to something happening at home." His defenses rose immediately. "Are you suggesting we're hurting our daughter?" "Not intentionally, no. But I need to ask some difficult questions." She took a breath. "How well do you know your daughter's daily routine?" The question seemed to catch him off guard. "Well, I'm on the road a lot, 4 days a week usually. And when you're home? I sleep, I fix things around the apartment. I try to spend time with the kids." He looked down. "But honestly, by the time I get home, Ivy's usually already in bed." "What about Marcus? How would you describe your relationship with him?" Mr. Miller's expression darkened. "Marcus is challenging. He was a great kid until middle school. Then everything changed. He got angry, distant. The school counselor said, he has anxiety, but the medication they gave him made him like a zombie. He refused to keep taking it. Do you know what happened to that medication? It should be in our bathroom cabinet." "Why?" Dr. Evelyn chose her next words carefully. "We found traces of that medication in Ivy's system." The color drained from Mr. Miller's face. That's impossible. Unless—" His eyes widened with sudden understanding. "Oh, God." Later, with Mrs. Miller, Dr. Evelyn approached from a different angle. "Your brother seems very involved in Ivy's life," she noted. Mrs. Miller smiled for the first time since arriving. "Caleb's been a lifesaver. When my husband's on the road and I'm working doubles, Caleb steps in. He feeds Ivy, helps with homework, takes her and that dog everywhere. Have you ever noticed anything unusual in their interaction?" Mrs. Miller's smile faded. "What are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything," Dr. Evelyn assured her. "I'm trying to understand Ivy's behavior. She clearly adores your brother, but she shows signs of anxiety around him too. That's ridiculous. Caleb's the only one who—" She trailed off, a new thought seeming to strike her. "The only one who what?" Dr. Evelyn prompted. "The only one who ever sees Marcus's episodes," she finished quietly. "When Marcus loses his temper, Caleb's usually the one who deals with it, so I don't have to worry while I'm at work." Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Back in Ivy's room, the little girl was sleeping peacefully for the first time since her arrival. Waffles lay curled at her feet, and Button rested in the crook of her arm. Uncle Caleb sat beside the bed, keeping watch. She finally settled down, he told Dr. Evelyn when she entered. Poor kid's been through so much. You care about her a great deal, Dr. Evelyn observed. She's special, he said simply. Smart, kind, always putting everyone else first. She deserves better than… He stopped himself. Better than what? Dr. Evelyn asked softly. Caleb looked down at Ivy's sleeping form. Better than having to be so quiet and invisible all the time, he said finally. Better than having to hide from her own brother. Outside the room, Marcus stood frozen in the hallway, having overheard these last words. In his hands, he clutched a small stuffed dog he'd bought from the gift shop, a peace offering for his sister. His face reflected a mix of shame, anger, and something else, fear. The night settled over the hospital like a heavy blanket, but for those involved in Ivy's case, there would be little rest until all the pieces of her silent puzzle were finally revealed. Morning sunlight streamed through the half-drawn blinds of Ivy's hospital room. The little girl was already awake, sitting cross-legged on her bed with her notebook open before her. Waffles lay beside her, occasionally nudging her hand for attention. Button sat propped against her pillow, overseeing the artwork taking shape beneath Ivy's careful fingers. Dr. Evelyn paused in the doorway, not wanting to interrupt this moment of peaceful concentration. Ivy was drawing with intense focus, her tongue slightly poking out between her lips. The doctor noticed that today's drawing was different, more detailed, more urgent somehow. "Good morning, Ivy," Dr. Evelyn said softly, finally stepping into the room. "You're up early." Ivy glanced up briefly, then returned to her drawing. Button couldn't sleep. He had important things to show me. "May I see what you're drawing?" Dr. Evelyn pulled a chair beside the bed. Ivy hesitated, then turned the notebook around. The image showed a detailed medicine cabinet with several bottles inside. One bottle in particular was highlighted with careful cross-hatching to make it stand out. Below the cabinet was a chair, and on the chair stood a small figure, unmistakably Ivy, reaching for the special bottle. "This is very detailed," Dr. Evelyn commented. "Is this at your home?" Ivy nodded solemnly. "And what happens after you reach for the bottle?" Instead of answering, Ivy turned to a new page and began drawing again. This time she sketched what appeared to be her bedroom. In one corner was a small closet with the door slightly ajar. Inside the closet were 3 figures, Ivy, Button, and Waffles. "Is this your quiet place?" Dr. Evelyn asked gently. "Yes," Ivy whispered, "for when things get too loud." "What makes things loud, Ivy?" The little girl exchanged a look with Button before answering. "When Marcus gets spiky, when his eyes get scary." Dr. Evelyn noticed how Ivy's hand trembled slightly as she added more details to the drawing. A bed, a nightstand, and something small and round on the floor beside the closet door. "What's this?" Dr. Evelyn pointed to the round object. "One of the helper pills," Ivy said matter-of-factly. "It fell when I was running to the quiet place." The pieces were falling into place, but Dr. Evelyn needed to be sure. "Ivy, did you ever take any of these helper pills yourself?" Ivy looked at Button, then back at Dr. Evelyn. "Only when my tummy really hurt, or when I was really scared. Button said it might help because it helps Marcus be not so spiky." Dr. Evelyn kept her expression neutral, despite the alarm bells ringing in her mind. "How did you know which pills to take?" "I watched," Ivy explained simply. "The white ones, with the line in the middle, make Marcus quiet. So when my tummy hurt too much, I tried one too." Just then, Mrs. Miller appeared in the doorway with Uncle Caleb. Both carried coffee cups and looked as though they'd spent the night at the hospital. "Good morning, sweetheart," Mrs. Miller said, her voice artificially bright. "How are you feeling today?" Ivy quickly closed her notebook, pulling it closer to her chest. Dr. Evelyn noticed the protective gesture but didn't comment. "Button says my tummy feels better," Ivy answered quietly. Mrs. Bennett arrived shortly after, bringing a surprise visitor, Mrs. Holloway. the miller's elderly neighbor who had been caring for Waffles. "I hope it's all right I came," Mrs. Holloway said. "I wanted to check on our little Ivy." The old woman moved to Ivy's bedside, patting Waffles affectionately. "This one has been whining at your door every night," she told Ivy, "sleeping right outside it like a little guardian." "He protects me," Ivy said with the first real smile Dr. Evelyn had seen from her. "That he does," Mrs. Holloway agreed. "Better protection than—" She caught herself, glancing apologetically at Mrs. Miller. "Well, he's certainly devoted." Dr. Evelyn seized the opportunity. "Mrs. Holloway, as Ivy's neighbor, have you noticed anything that might help us understand her condition?" The elderly woman hesitated, clearly uncomfortable being put on the spot. "Well, I don't like to meddle in family business. Please, Mrs. Miller," Mrs. urged. "If you know something that could help Ivy, we need to hear it." Mrs. Holloway sighed. "I hear things through the walls sometimes. The shouting. That poor boy Marcus. He struggles so. And little Ivy. She's learned to disappear when things get bad." She looked directly at Ivy's mother. "That child has been taking care of herself, and everyone else, for too long." The room fell silent as the truth of these words settled over them. Uncle Caleb moved protectively closer to Ivy's bed. "May I see your drawings, Ivybug?" he asked gently. Ivy looked up at him, then at her mother, uncertainty in her eyes. "It's okay," Dr. Evelyn assured her. "Your drawings are helping us understand how to make you feel better." Slowly, Ivy opened her notebook. As the adults gathered around to see her detailed illustrations, the little girl whispered something to Button. "What did you say?" "Ivy?" Dr. Evelyn asked. "Button says the pictures can talk when I can't," she replied. "They tell the story I don't know how to say." On the last page of the notebook was a new drawing, one Dr. Evelyn hadn't seen before. A family standing together, holding hands. In the picture, everyone was smiling. Even Marcus. And above them all, a bright sun shone down, its rays touching each figure with light and warmth. It wasn't just a drawing, Dr. Evelyn realized. It was Ivy's greatest wish. The hospital cafeteria buzzed with morning activity as Dr. Evelyn met with her team. The results from Ivy's latest tests were spread across the table, along with copies of her most revealing drawings. "The blood work confirms it," Dr. Evelyn explained, pointing to the highlighted sections of the report. "Trace amounts of alprazolam, an anti-anxiety medication commonly prescribed for adults. It's consistent with what Ivy has been telling us through her drawings." Dr. Kapoor, the pediatric psychiatrist, studied the artwork carefully. "These images are extraordinarily detailed for a 6-year-old. Look at how she's drawn the medicine cabinet, even including the child-proof cap on the bottle. She's observed this many times." Ms. Bennett nodded. "Based on my conversations with Ivy and the family, I believe she was taking these medications sporadically, mimicking what she saw her brother do. Not enough to cause immediate danger, but over time, it created the chronic stomach issues and other symptoms we're seeing," Dr. Evelyn finished. "We need to talk to the parents together." Upstairs, Marcus sat alone in the small hospital chapel, his head in his hands. He hadn't meant for any of this to happen. The medication had been prescribed to help him, but it made him feel foggy, disconnected. He'd stopped taking it regularly months ago, using it only when things got really bad, when the anxiety made him feel like he was drowning, when the anger became too much to contain. He never imagined Ivy was watching. Never thought she'd try to fix herself the same way. The chapel. Ew. The door opened and Uncle Caleb entered, his expression somber but not accusatory. "Your mom's looking for you," he said, sitting beside Marcus. "The doctors want to talk to everyone." Marcus kept his gaze fixed on the floor. "They know it's my fault, don't they?" "This isn't about fault, Marcus." "Yes, it is," the teenager's voice cracked. "I'm the reason Ivy's sick. I'm the reason she's scared all the time. I saw her drawings. She draws me with spikes coming out of my eyes, Uncle Caleb. What kind of monster am I?" Caleb placed a hand on his nephew's shoulder. "You're not a monster, Marcus." You're a kid who's been dealing with some serious issues without enough support. I scared her so bad she had to hide in closets, Marcus whispered, and then she started taking my pills because she thought they would help her too. Look at me, Caleb said firmly. When Marcus finally raised his eyes, Caleb continued, Yes, Ivy was afraid when you were having episodes, but she also drew that picture of the whole family together, smiling, even you. She still believes in that possibility. In Ivy's room, the little girl was showing Mrs. Holloway her newest drawing, a detailed picture of Waffles standing guard outside her bedroom door. That's exactly how he sits, Mrs. Holloway chuckled, like a little soldier on duty. He knows when I need protection, Ivy explained, patting the dog's head. He can tell. Tell what, dear? Ivy exchanged a glance with Button before answering. When things are going to get loud, when Marcus is going to get spiky, Waffles always knows first. Mrs. Holloway's smile faded slightly. Has Marcus ever hurt you, Ivy? Ivy shook her head emphatically. No, he just gets scary sometimes. He throws things and yells. Then he takes the pills and gets very quiet. She looked down at her drawing. I don't like when he's too quiet either. It's like he goes away even when he's still there. The conversation was interrupted when Dr. Evelyn arrived with Ivy's parents. The tension in the room was palpable. Mrs. Holloway, would you mind giving us a moment with Ivy and her family? Dr. Evelyn asked politely. The elderly neighbor squeezed Ivy's hand before leaving. I'll be right outside if you need me, dear. Once the door closed, Dr. Evelyn addressed Mr. and Mrs. Miller directly. We've completed Ivy's tests, and we've confirmed that there are traces of prescription anti-anxiety medication in her system. Specifically, the medication that was prescribed to Marcus last year. Mrs. Miller gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Mr. Miller's face hardened into a mask of disbelief and anger. That's impossible, he insisted. Those pills are kept in our medicine cabinet, out of reach. According to Ivy's drawings and what she's told us, she observed Marcus taking these pills and eventually tried them herself when she was feeling scared or in pain. Dr. Evelyn explained gently. But why would she do that? Mrs. Miller asked, her voice breaking. Dr. Evelyn looked at Ivy, who was clutching Button tightly against her chest, Waffles pressed protectively against her side. Ivy, can you tell your parents why you took the pills from the cabinet? She prompted softly. The little girl looked at Button, then at her parents. They help Marcus when he gets spiky, she whispered. I thought they might help me not be scared or hurt too. The raw honesty of her words hung in the air. Mr. Miller sank heavily into a chair, the anger draining from his face, replaced by profound sadness. At that moment, Uncle Caleb returned with, Marcus. The teenager stood in the doorway, his tall frame seeming smaller somehow, more vulnerable. His eyes were red-rimmed, his shoulders hunched with the weight of realization. When Ivy saw her brother, something unexpected happened. Instead of shrinking away, she held Button out toward him. An offering, an invitation. Button says you're hurting too, she said simply. In that moment of truth, surrounded by the adults who had failed to see what was happening, Ivy was the one who saw most clearly. The shadows that had defined her silent world were finally exposed to the light. The family. Meeting continued in Ivy's hospital room, the air heavy with difficult truths. Marcus stood frozen in the doorway, staring at Button being offered in his direction, unable to move or speak. Come sit down, Marcus, Dr. Evelyn said gently. This is an important conversation for your whole family. The teenager shuffled forward, carefully avoiding eye contact with everyone as he took the chair farthest from Ivy's bed. He didn't reach for Button, and after a moment, Ivy pulled the teddy bear back into her arms. What happens now? Mr. Miller asked, his voice rough with emotion. How do we fix this? This isn't something with a quick fix, Dr. Evelyn explained. We need to address several issues. Ivy's physical recovery from the medication effects, Marcus's untreated anxiety, and the family dynamics that led to this situation. Mrs. Miller wiped tears from her eyes. We never meant for Things to get this bad. We were just trying to keep the family afloat, working all those hours. No one is blaming you, Ms. Bennett assured her. But we do need to make some changes to ensure both your children get the support they need. As the adults discussed treatment plans and next steps, Marcus finally looked up at his little sister. She was watching him with those solemn eyes that always seemed to see too much. "I'm sorry," he whispered, so quietly that only Ivy heard him. She nodded slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement rather than forgiveness. There was wisdom in her young face, the wisdom of a child who had grown up too quickly in the shadows of adult problems. Suddenly, a commotion in the hallway interrupted the meeting. Raised voices and hurried footsteps approached Ivy's room. A nurse burst in, her expression urgent. "Dr. Evelyn, we need you in emergency. There's been a multi-car accident and we're short-staffed." "I'll be right there," Dr. Evelyn replied, standing quickly. She turned to the family. "I'm sorry, but I have to go. Ms. Bennett will stay with you to continue our discussion." As she hurried out, Ivy's monitoring machine began to beep rapidly. The little girl's face had gone pale and she clutched her stomach, doubling over in pain. "Ivy!" Mrs. Miller cried out, rushing to her daughter's side. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" "It hurts," Ivy whimpered, curling into a tight ball. "Button, it hurts bad." The teddy bear slipped from her grasp, tumbling to the floor as nurses rushed into the room. Waffles began barking frantically, trying to jump onto the bed as Ivy's pain intensified. "We need to move her to examination right away," a nurse announced, already preparing to transfer Ivy. "Her vitals are dropping." Everything happened in a blur of motion and sound. Ivy was quickly moved onto a gurney, her small form nearly lost among the medical equipment. As they wheeled her out, Waffles leaped from the bed, attempting to follow, barking desperately. "Button!" Ivy called weakly, reaching back toward her fallen teddy bear. "I need..." "Button." Uncle Caleb scooped up the stuffed animal but was stopped from following by hospital staff. "Family needs to wait here," a nurse instructed firmly. "We'll update you as soon as we can." In the chaotic moment, no one noticed Marcus slip away from the room, Button clutched in his hands. He followed the medical team at a distance, his face a mask of guilt and fear. The waiting room became a prison of anxiety for the family. Mrs. Miller paced back and forth while Mr. Miller sat stone-faced, his hands clasped so tightly his knuckles turned white. Uncle Caleb tried to comfort Waffles, who continued to whine softly, staring at the doors through which Ivy had disappeared. "This is my fault," Mrs. Miller kept repeating. "I should have noticed something was wrong long before this." "We all missed the signs," Uncle Caleb said quietly. "We were all so busy surviving that we didn't see what was happening right in front of us." An hour passed with no news, then two. The tension in the waiting room grew until it seemed to press against the walls. Finally, Dr. Evelyn appeared, her scrubs rumpled and her expression grave. The family rose as one, bracing for the worst. "Ivy is stabilized," she announced, and a collective breath of relief filled the room. She experienced an acute stress reaction combined with withdrawal symptoms from the medication. Her body is essentially detoxifying itself, which is causing significant discomfort, but she's responding well to treatment. "Can we see her?" Mrs. Miller asked anxiously. "Soon," Dr. Evelyn promised. "But first, where's Marcus?" The family looked around, suddenly realizing the teenager was missing. "He was here just after they took Ivy," Mr. Miller said, confusion clouding his face. "And Button?" Dr. Evelyn asked. "Ivy's been asking for her teddy bear." A new worry dawned on their faces as they realized both Marcus and the beloved stuffed animal were gone. At that moment, a hospital security guard approached. "Dr. Evelyn, we found a teenage boy sitting alone in the chapel. He asked me to give you this." The guard held out Button, looking somewhat battered but intact. Attached to the teddy bear's arm was a folded note. As Dr. Evelyn took the bear and note, the hospital's overhead speaker system crackled to life. "Code yellow, pediatric ward. Code yellow, pediatric ward." The color drained from Dr. Evelyn's face as she unfolded the note from Marcus. Dr. Evelyn quickly scanned the note from Marcus, her expression shifting from concern to understanding. "It's okay," she assured the anxious family. "The code yellow is a standard precaution when a patient's family member can't be located. Marcus isn't in trouble. He's just in a place where he's not supposed to be." She handed Button to Uncle Caleb and showed them the note. "I'm sorry for everything. I need a minute to think. I gave Button back because Ivy needs him more than I do. Please tell her I never meant to make her scared or sick. Marcus, I'll find him," Mr. Miller said, already heading for the door. Dr. Evelyn placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Actually, I think I know where he might be. Let me talk to him first, and then bring him to Ivy. I believe they both need this moment." She found Marcus exactly where the security guard had mentioned. Sitting alone in the last pew of the small hospital chapel, his lanky frame hunched forward, staring at his hands. He didn't look up when she entered. "The code yellow wasn't necessary," he muttered. "I wasn't running away." "I know," Dr. Evelyn said, sitting beside him. "But hospital protocol requires us to account for all visitors, especially family members of patients." They sat in silence for a moment before Marcus spoke again. "I read Ivy's drawings, the ones where she draws me with spikes coming out of my eyes." His voice was barely above a whisper. "Is that really how she sees me?" Dr. Evelyn considered her response carefully. "I think that's how she perceives your anxiety attacks, not you as a person. Children often use visual metaphors to make sense of complex emotions. I never knew she was watching me take those pills. I never thought—" He trailed off, unable to finish. "Marcus, you're not responsible for your sister's condition. You're dealing with your own struggles." "But I am responsible for how I acted around her," he insisted. "For the yelling, the throwing things, for being so wrapped up in my own problems that I didn't see she was hurt and scared." Dr. Evelyn nodded. "That's fair, and acknowledging that is an important first step." Meanwhile, in Ivy's room, the little girl had been moved back from the emergency department. She was awake but tired, her small face drawn with exhaustion. Uncle Caleb sat beside her bed holding Button. "Button, missed you," he said softly, placing the teddy bear in her arms. Ivy hugged Button close, whispering something in the bear's worn ear. "What did you tell him?" Uncle Caleb asked. "I told him we're going to be okay," Ivy replied, "even though I'm still a little scared." "What are you scared of?" "Ivy bug?" She looked down at Button, then back at her uncle. "That things won't change. That everyone will still be too busy, and Marcus will still get spiky and I'll have to be quiet forever." Uncle Caleb felt his heart break a little at her words. "Things are going to change, Ivy, I promise. Everyone knows now what's been happening, and we're all going to work together to make it better." Mrs. Miller, who had been listening from the doorway, came to sit on Ivy's other side. "Your uncle is right, sweetheart. Dad and I didn't realize how much you were carrying all by yourself. But we see now, and we're going to do better." When Dr. Evelyn returned with Marcus, the teenager hesitated at the threshold. Ivy's eyes fixed on him, not with fear, but with that same solemn awareness that seemed beyond her years. "It's okay," Dr. Evelyn encouraged him. "Ivy has something she wants to share with you." Marcus stepped cautiously into the room, keeping a respectful distance from the bed. "I'm sorry," he began, but Ivy interrupted him. "Button wants to talk to you," she said simply, holding the teddy bear out toward her brother. Confused, Marcus looked to Dr. Evelyn, who nodded encouragingly. He approached the bed and carefully took Button from Ivy's hands. "Put him close to your ear," Ivy instructed. "He whispers." Feeling slightly foolish but unwilling to disappoint his sister, Marcus held the teddy bear to his ear. After a moment, he looked at Ivy with surprise. "What did he say?" Dr. Evelyn asked gently. "He said," Marcus's voice caught. "He said that Ivy knows what it's like when things hurt inside where no one can see, and that she took the pills because she thought they fixed that kind of hurt for me." He looked at his sister with new understanding. "Is that true?" Ivy nodded solemnly. "Button says we both need different medicine, and more talking, less hiding. The profound simplicity of her words hung in the air. Through Button, Ivy had articulated what none of the adults had fully grasped, that she and Marcus were mirror images of the same pain, each responding in their own way to an environment where emotions were buried beneath the surface of daily survival. "Button's pretty smart," Marcus said, handing the teddy bear back to his sister. "He knows things I don't know how to say," Ivy explained, settling Button in the crook of her arm. Then, in a moment of unexpected clarity, she added, "But I think I want to learn how to say them myself." It was the first time she had expressed a desire to speak in her own voice rather than through Button, a small but significant shift that made Dr. Evelyn smile with hope. Outside the EI window, the afternoon sun broke through the clouds, casting warm patches of light across the hospital room floor, a perfect metaphor for the breakthrough that had just occurred in this family's journey. The next morning, Dr. Evelyn stood at the Miller family's apartment door with Ms. Bennett and a child welfare officer. Mr. Miller had given them permission to examine the home environment as part of Ivy's treatment plan. Uncle Caleb met them there, having agreed to serve as a family representative during the visit. "Thank you for allowing this," Dr. Evelyn said as Caleb unlocked the door. "Understanding Ivy's home environment will help us create the most effective support system for her recovery." The apartment was small but tidy, clearly maintained by people working hard to create a stable home, despite limited resources. Photos of Ivy and Marcus hung on the walls alongside school certificates and artwork. Waffles' dog bed sat in the corner of the living room, a worn tennis ball nestled in its center. "Ivy's room is this way," Caleb explained, leading them down a narrow hallway. The little girl's bedroom was painted a soft yellow, with carefully arranged stuffed animals on a small bookshelf. A child-sized desk held crayons and paper, and star stickers decorated the ceiling. Dr. Evelyn noticed a small closet with the door slightly ajar, unmistakably the quiet place from Ivy's drawings. "May I?" she asked, gesturing toward the closet. Caleb nodded, his expression somber. Dr. Evelyn opened the door fully to reveal a carefully created sanctuary. A small blanket was folded on the floor, alongside a flashlight and a picture book. A water bottle stood in one corner, and a box of crackers in another. Most telling was a small pile of Ivy's drawings taped to the inside wall, illustrations of happy scenes, sunny days, and smiling faces. An escape not just physically, but emotionally. She created her own safe space, Ms. Bennett observed quietly. "She shouldn't have needed to," Caleb replied, his voice tight with emotion. They moved on to the bathroom, where Dr. Evelyn focused her attention on the medicine cabinet, the central feature in several of Ivy's most revealing drawings. Inside were standard household medications, pain relievers, cold medicine, bandages. Nothing unusual. "This doesn't match Ivy's drawings," Dr. Evelyn noted. She depicted a cabinet with multiple prescription bottles, particularly one with a white cap that she emphasized repeatedly. Caleb frowned. "That's strange. I know Marcus was prescribed something last year, but I've never seen where he keeps it." The child welfare officer made notes as they continued to Marcus's room. Unlike the rest of the apartment, his space was chaotic. Clothes strewn across the floor, posters covering every inch of wall space, homework papers scattered across a cluttered desk. "Should we be doing this?" Caleb asked hesitantly. "Invading his privacy? We're not here to judge or punish," Dr. Evelyn assured him. "We're trying to understand what Ivy has been observing and experiencing." As they carefully examined the room, Ms. Bennett noticed something unusual about the closet. "The baseboard here doesn't match the rest of the wall," she observed, pointing to a section that appeared slightly newer than the surrounding area. Dr. Evelyn knelt down for a closer look. Sure enough, a small section of the baseboard moved when she pressed it, revealing a hidden compartment built into the wall. Inside was exactly what Ivy had drawn. Several prescription bottles, including the distinctive one with the white cap that featured prominently in her artwork. There were also several unmarked containers with pills of various shapes and colors. "This is concerning," the welfare officer stated, photographing the hidden cache. Some of these appear to be medications not prescribed to anyone in this household. Caleb's face paled. I had no idea. Marcus must have been collecting these from somewhere. Maybe from his friends at school? Dr. Evelyn carefully examined the labels on the bottles. This one is the anti-anxiety medication prescribed to Marcus last year. These others, she frowned. Some appear to be pain medications, likely from your mother's prescriptions, she said, looking at Caleb. My mother takes several medications for her back pain, Caleb confirmed. She's mentioned sometimes feeling like she's missing pills, but we assumed she was just forgetting she'd taken them. The reality of the situation was becoming clearer. Marcus, struggling with untreated anxiety, had been self-medicating with whatever he could find, creating a dangerous cocktail of drugs that he used to manage his emotional storms. And Ivy, the silent observer, had been watching and learning. On the desk, partially hidden under homework papers, was a journal. Ms. Bennett carefully opened it to reveal Marcus's private thoughts. Not the angry scribbles they might have expected, but pages of anguished writing about feeling overwhelmed, about the pressure to be normal, about his fear of turning into someone scary. One entry stood out. Found Ivy hiding in her closet again today. She had Button with her and was whispering to him. I wanted to tell her I'm sorry for yelling, but I don't know how. It's like there's a wall between us now. Maybe the pills will help me be better tomorrow. Dr. Evelyn closed the journal gently, respecting the teenager's privacy while acknowledging the importance of what they'd discovered. Marcus isn't just acting out, she said quietly. He's been desperately trying to manage serious anxiety on his own, using whatever methods he could find. And Ivy, in her own way, was trying to follow his example. As they prepared to leave, Caleb noticed something tucked behind Marcus's desk, a small stuffed dog that looked remarkably like Waffles. He got this for Ivy at the hospital gift shop, Caleb realized. But he never gave it to her. The toy sat like a symbol of the broken connection between brother and sister, a gesture of love that never made it past the walls of fear and silence that had grown between them. Back at the hospital, Ivy was drawing again, creating a new picture of her family. This time she drew Marcus without the spiky lines around his eyes, instead giving him a thought bubble containing a small medicine bottle with a question mark. In her own way, she understood more than anyone realized. When Dr. Evelyn returned to the hospital, she found Ivy sitting up in bed looking stronger than she had in days. The little girl was engaged in what appeared to be an intense conversation with Button, while Waffles lay curled at her feet, ears perked forward as if listening to every word. Good afternoon, Ivy, Dr. Evelyn greeted her. You look like you're feeling better today. Ivy nodded. Button says the medicine you gave me is the right kind, not like the other ones. Dr. Evelyn pulled a chair close to the bed. That's right. The medicine we're giving you is specially made for children, in the right dose to help your body heal. She noticed Ivy's latest drawings spread across the images of the apartment, Marcus's room, and with remarkable accuracy, the hidden compartment they had discovered that morning. Ivy, how did you know about this special place in Marcus's room? Dr. Evelyn asked, pointing to the drawing. I saw him make it, Ivy explained simply. He used Dad's tools when no one was home. He said it was a secret place for secret things. Did he know you saw him? Ivy shook her head. I'm good at being quiet. Marcus taught me how to walk without making the floor creak. Dr. Evelyn carefully considered her next question. Ivy, can you tell me why Waffles barks when Marcus comes near you? At the mention of his name, Waffles raised his head, a low growl rumbling in his throat. It's okay, Waffles, Ivy soothed, patting the small dog's head. She looked at Button before answering. Waffles doesn't like when Marcus gets spiky. Once, when Marcus was really spiky, he said. She trailed off, looking uncertain. What did he say, Ivy? Dr. Evelyn prompted gently. He said if I ever told anyone about the secret medicine, he would... Ivy's voice dropped to a whisper. He said Waffles would have to go away forever. That Mom and Dad would get rid of him. Understanding dawned on Dr. Evelyn's face. This was why Ivy had been so protective of her dog, why she had maintained her silence for so long. It wasn't just fear for herself. It was fear for her beloved companion. Was that the only reason you didn't tell anyone about the medicine? Doctor, Evelyn asked. Ivy hugged Button closer. Marcus said the medicine was the only thing that helped him not feel bad inside. I didn't want to take it away from him. She looked up with those solemn eyes. And sometimes, when my tummy hurt really bad, or when I felt scared after Marcus got spiky, I thought maybe the medicine would help me too. Did Uncle Caleb know about any of this? Dr. Evelyn asked carefully. Ivy's expression changed, softening with genuine affection. No. Uncle Caleb always makes the hurt better without medicine. He reads stories and makes pancakes and takes me and Waffles to the park. She frowned slightly. But I was scared if anyone found out about the medicine, they wouldn't let Uncle Caleb come anymore. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Ivy's contradictory behavior toward her uncle, the love coupled with anxiety, wasn't fear of him, but fear of losing him if the family's problems were exposed. Just then, Waffles jumped up, his attention fixed on the doorway. A moment later, Marcus appeared, hovering uncertainly at the threshold. "Can I come in?" he asked quietly. Waffles immediately positioned himself between Marcus and Ivy, his small body tense with protective instinct. Instead of shrinking away, Ivy looked directly at her brother and said in a clear voice, "Waffles is warning you. He always knows when someone might get spiky." Marcus nodded, understanding the boundary being set. "I know, that's why I'm staying over here." He held up the small stuffed dog he'd bought at the gift shop. "I brought this for you. It's not as good as the real Waffles, but I thought maybe—" Ivy looked at the toy, then at her brother. "Button says you're trying to be better." "I am," Marcus confirmed, his voice breaking slightly. "I promise, Ivy. No more scary medicine, no more threats. And Waffles isn't going anywhere." As if understanding his words, Waffles relaxed slightly, though he remained vigilant at Ivy's side, a small but mighty guardian whose instincts had been right all along. Chapter 12. Family Shadows. 3 days. Later, the Millers gathered in a comfortable conference room at the hospital. The space was designed to feel less clinical. Potted plants in the corners, artwork on the walls, and a round table that put everyone on equal footing. Dr. Evelyn had arranged this family meeting as a crucial step in Ivy's recovery plan. Ivy sat between her mother and Uncle Caleb. Button settled in her lap and Waffles curled at her feet. Marcus sat across from her, looking uncomfortable but determined. Mr. Miller completed the circle, his work-roughened hands clasped tightly on the table. "Thank you all for being here," Dr. Evelyn began. "Ivy's physical condition has improved significantly. The medication is cleared from her system, and her stomach issues are resolving. Now we need to address the family dynamics that contributed to this situation." Mrs. Miller wiped a tear from her eye. "I still can't believe we didn't see what was happening. We were so busy just trying to keep a roof over our heads." "That's exactly what we need to discuss," Ms. Bennett interjected gently. "You've all been in survival mode for so long that communication broke down. Each of you has been carrying heavy burdens alone." Mr. Miller shifted uncomfortably. "I've arranged to take fewer long-haul routes. I'll be home more often now. And I've talked to my supervisor about changing to day shifts only," Mrs. Miller added. "It means a little less money, but being present for the children is more important." As the adults discussed practical changes, Ivy leaned down to whisper something to Waffles. The small dog's ears perked up, and he gave her hand a gentle lick. "What did you tell him, Ivy?" Dr. Evelyn asked, noticing the interaction. Ivy looked up, her expression thoughtful. "I told Waffles he doesn't have to be the only protector anymore." The simple statement hit everyone hard. Even Marcus looked down, blinking rapidly. "Ivy's right," Uncle Caleb said, breaking the emotional silence. "We've all failed in our responsibilities as protectors. I should have noticed what was happening with Marcus, should Have asked more questions when Ivy was so quiet all the time. It's not just your responsibility, Mrs. Miller told her brother. We're her parents. We should have been more present. Marcus cleared his throat. And I should have been a better brother instead of... He trailed off, unable to finish. Instead of being spiky, Ivy offered, using her own terminology. He nodded, a hint of a sad smile touching his lips. Yeah, instead of being spiky. Dr. Evelyn steered the conversation toward concrete solutions. Marcus has agreed to begin proper treatment for his anxiety, with medication, prescribed specifically for teenagers and regular therapy sessions. And the hidden stash of pills has been properly disposed of, Mr. Miller added firmly. What about Ivy? Mrs. Miller asked. How do we help her feel safe enough to speak up when something's wrong? Dr. Evelyn turned to Ivy. What do you think would help you, Ivy? What would make it easier for you to talk to your family when you're worried or hurting? Ivy considered the question seriously, looking at Button as if consulting with him. Finally, she said, maybe we could have a special time every day just for talking about hard things, and nobody gets in trouble for what they say. The wisdom in her suggestion surprised everyone. Dr. Evelyn nodded approvingly. That's an excellent idea, a daily family check-in where everyone can share honestly without fear of judgment. We could do it at dinner, Mrs. Miller suggested. Or bedtime, Uncle Caleb added. I could join by phone on the days I'm not there in person. As they continued to build a framework for healthier family communication, Dr. Evelyn watched Ivy closely. The little girl was participating more actively than ever before, occasionally speaking directly, instead of through Button. It was a promising sign of her emerging confidence. When the meeting concluded, Mr. Miller approached his son, placing a hand on his shoulder. We're going to get through this together, son. All of us. For the first time in a long while, Marcus didn't pull away from his father's touch. Instead, he nodded, whispering a barely audible, "Thanks, Dad." Outside the window, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the hospital grounds, shadows that stretched and connected, much like the Miller family was beginning to do. The darkness wasn't gone, but it was now. Acknowledged, named, and faced together rather than alone. And in that acknowledgement lay the beginnings of healing. The day of Ivy's discharge from the hospital arrived with a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. Her medical issues were resolved, but the family was stepping into new territory. A home life restructured around communication and healing rather than silence and survival. Dr. Evelyn completed her final examination, smiling at Ivy's improved condition. You're doing wonderfully, Ivy. Your body has recovered, and I can see you're feeling better. Ivy nodded. Button clutched in one arm while she petted Waffles with her free hand. The small dog had become a fixture in her hospital room, his presence approved as therapeutic by the medical staff. Will you miss us when you go home? Dr. Evelyn asked gently. Yes, Ivy whispered. Button says you listen in a special way. Well, I have something for both of you. Dr. Evelyn presented Ivy with a small notebook, its cover decorated with colorful stars. This is a feelings journal. Anytime you have big feelings that are hard to say out loud, you can draw them in here. Then, during your family talking time, you can share the drawings if you want to. Ivy ran her fingers over the notebook reverently. Like Button, but on paper? Exactly. Another way for your voice to be heard. As the family gathered Ivy's belongings, Ms. Bennett arrived with some final paperwork. She pulled Mrs. Miller aside for a private conversation. We've arranged for a family support worker to visit weekly, she explained, and Marcus's first therapy appointment is scheduled for tomorrow. Mrs. Miller nodded gratefully. Thank you for everything. We won't let Ivy down again. Across the room, Uncle Caleb was helping Ivy put on her jacket when a hospital administrator appeared in the doorway, looking concerned. Dr. Evelyn, there's a situation with the transportation arrangements. Could I speak with you privately? As the adult stepped into the hallway, Ivy continued packing her drawings into her backpack, carefully, arranging them so they wouldn't bend. Marcus hovered nearby, trying to help but unsure how. I like your new pictures, he said awkwardly. The ones without the spiky eyes. Ivy glanced up at him. Button says you're different now. I'm trying to be, Marcus admitted. The doctor gave me new medicine that doesn't make me feel foggy, and I'm going to talk to someone about the loud thoughts in my head. From the hallway, they could hear snippets of a tense conversation. Words like policy and regulations drifted through the partially open door. What's happening? Ivy asked, sensing the tension. Marcus shrugged. Probably just grown-up stuff. A moment later, the adults returned. Dr. Evelyn looked apologetic, while Mrs. Miller seemed upset. Ivy, sweetheart, Mrs. Miller began carefully. There's been a small problem with the paperwork for Waffles. Ivy immediately wrapped her arms around the small dog. What kind of problem? The hospital administrator has reminded us that technically, Waffles was only approved for visits, not overnight stays, Dr. Evelyn explained, and there's a concern about transporting him in the hospital vehicle. But he's coming home with us. Right. Ivy's voice quivered slightly. The adults exchanged uncomfortable glances. Of course he is, Uncle Caleb assured her, but he might need to go separately. Mrs. Holloway has offered to bring him to the apartment later today. No! The force of Ivy's response startled everyone. It wasn't a whisper or a question. It was a clear, firm declaration. Waffles stays with me. The adults stared in shock. This was the loudest, most assertive they had ever heard Ivy speak. Sweetheart, Mrs. Miller began. It's just for a few hours. No! Ivy stood up, still holding Waffles protectively. He keeps me safe. He knows when things are wrong before anyone else does. Button slipped from her grasp, falling unnoticed to the floor as she continued. He slept outside my door every night. He knew when to hide with me in the quiet place. He's the one who always stayed. The raw emotion in her voice silenced everyone in the room. This wasn't Button speaking, or a whispered confidence. This was Ivy's true voice, powerful and direct, breaking through years of learned silence. Dr. Evelyn knelt down to meet Ivy's eyes. You're absolutely right, Ivy. Waffles has been protecting you when others couldn't, and he should stay with you. She stood and turned to the administrator. I'll take personal responsibility for this exception to policy. Waffles goes home with Ivy today. The administrator hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. I'll make a note in the file. As he left, Uncle Caleb picked up Button from the floor, offering him back to Ivy. To everyone's surprise, she shook her head. Button can go in my backpack for now, she said clearly. I need my hands free to hold Waffles. It was a small moment, but a profound one. Ivy choosing to speak directly rather than through her. Teddy Bear, prioritizing her real-world protector over her symbolic one. Mrs. Miller wiped tears from her eyes as she witnessed her daughter's transformation. The child who had hidden in shadows and whispers was finding her voice at last. Marcus, watching from the corner, smiled slightly, a genuine, expression of pride for his sister's courage. Way to go, Ivy, he said softly. Tell them how it is. The Miller family's apartment felt different somehow, as if the walls themselves had changed during their time away. In reality, it was the family that had transformed, viewing their home through new eyes and with new understanding. Uncle Caleb had spent the previous day preparing for their return. Fresh flowers brightened the living room, and a welcome home banner hung across the entryway. Mrs. Holloway had baked Ivy's favorite cookies, the scent of cinnamon and sugar lingering pleasantly in the air. We made some changes while you were in the hospital, Mr. Miller explained as he guided Ivy through the apartment. We think you'll like them. Ivy's bedroom had been rearranged. Her bed now faced the window, allowing sunlight to stream directly onto her pillow each morning. A small, desk sat in the corner with art supplies neatly organized in colorful containers. But the most significant change was visible on her walls, a bulletin board filled with her hospital drawings, proudly displayed rather than hidden away. Your art is important, Mrs. Miller explained, kneeling beside her daughter. Just like your words are important, we want to see both. Ivy approached the bulletin board slowly, Waffles trotting faithfully at her heels. She reached out to touch one of the drawings, the one of her family standing together beneath a bright sun. "This one is my favorite," she said, her voice clear and unhesitating. "Mine too," came Marcus's voice from the doorway. He looked different somehow, less hunched, his eyes clearer. "I was thinking maybe we could draw together sometimes, if you want to." Ivy considered this offer seriously before nodding. "Okay." But no spiky eyes allowed. A ghost of a smile crossed Marcus's face. "Deal." The family gathered in the living room for their first official talking time, the daily check-in Ivy had suggested. They sat in a circle, somewhat awkwardly at first, uncertain how to begin this new practice. "Perhaps we could each share one feeling we had today," Dr. Evelyn had suggested during their final meeting. "Just one word to start with." Mr. Miller cleared his throat. "I'll go first. Today I feel hopeful." The word seemed to surprise even him as he said it. "Grateful," Mrs. Miller offered next, reaching for her husband's hand. Uncle Caleb smiled. "Proud of all of you." They looked expectantly at Marcus, who stared at the floor for a long moment before answering. "Scared," he admitted finally, but like a good scared, like when you're about to do something important. When it was Ivy's turn, she pulled Button from her backpack, holding him briefly before setting him aside. "I feel heard," she said clearly. That evening, as Ivy prepared for bed, her mother helped her arrange her new feelings journal and colored pencils on her nightstand. "Remember what Dr. Evelyn said," Mrs. Miller reminded her. "You can draw anything you feel in here and share it during talking time if you want to." "Even the hard feelings?" Ivy asked. "Especially those," her mother confirmed. "No more secrets in this family." As Mrs. Miller tucked her in, Ivy noticed something on her pillow, a small walkie-talkie. "What's this for?" "It connects to ones in our room and Marcus's room," her mother explained. "If you ever feel scared or need something at night, you just press this button and talk. No more having to be quiet or hide in your closet." Ivy held the device carefully, testing its weight in her small hands. "It's like Button," she observed, "but it lets everyone hear." Exactly. After her mother left, Ivy settled under her covers, Button tucked beside her, and Waffles curled at her feet. The walkie-talkie sat on her nightstand, its small green light blinking reassuringly in the darkness. Impulse, she reached for it, pressing the talk button. "Good night, everyone," she said clearly into the device. "Button says thank you for listening." Almost immediately, responses crackled back. "Good night, sweetheart. We love you." Her parents' voices. "Night, Ivy. See you at breakfast." Marcus, sounding sleepy but present. And from the guest room, "Sweet dreams, Ivy Bug. Waffles and Button will keep watch tonight." Uncle Caleb's warm voice. Ivy placed the walkie-talkie back on her nightstand, a smile spreading across her face. For the first time in memory, she fell asleep without fear, without the need to stay silent, without the burden of secrets too heavy for her small shoulders. Outside her window, stars sparkled in the clear night sky. Inside, equally important, new connections were forming, invisible but strong, like constellations of trust being mapped across the once dark landscape of their family life. 6 months had passed since Ivy's hospital stay. The seasons had changed, turning summer to fall, and now to the first hints of winter. But the most remarkable transformations had occurred within the Miller family itself. On this crisp Saturday morning, they gathered at Westside Park for a special occasion, Ivy's follow-up appointment with Dr. Evelyn, conducted as a picnic rather than in a clinical setting. The doctor had suggested this approach to celebrate Ivy's progress in a place filled with light and fresh air. Ivy skipped ahead on the path, Waffles trotting beside her, both of them occasionally stopping to investigate interesting leaves or sticks. She wore a bright yellow coat that matched the remaining autumn foliage, her cheeks pink with cold and excitement. "She's like a different child," Mrs. Miller remarked to Dr. Evelyn as they walked behind. "I never realized how much energy she was using just to stay quiet and invisible." Children are remarkably resilient, Dr. Evelyn replied. When they feel safe, they can finally be themselves. Marcus walked alongside his father, the two of them carrying the picnic basket between them. The teenager had grown taller over the past months, his formerly hunched posture now straightened. Regular therapy and properly prescribed medication had helped calm his anxiety, allowing his natural thoughtfulness to emerge. "How are the family talking times going?" Dr. Evelyn asked as they spread blankets under a large oak tree. "They're the best part of my day," Mr. Miller admitted. "I never knew how much I was missing by being too tired to really listen." "Ivy's the one who keeps us accountable," Mrs. Miller added with a smile. "If we try to skip a day, she reminds us it's important for us family healing." As they unpacked sandwiches and thermoses of hot chocolate, Uncle Caleb arrived carrying a small wrapped package. He had recently found an apartment just a few blocks from the Millers, allowing him to remain a consistent presence in their lives while respecting their need to grow as a nuclear family. "Uncle Caleb," Ivy called out, running to greet him. "Did you bring it?" "Of course I did, Ivy Bug. I promised, didn't I?" He handed her the package with a wink. Dr. Evelyn observed the easy interaction, noting how Ivy now looked directly at her uncle, all traces of her former anxiety gone. "What's in the package?" she asked curiously. "It's for my presentation," Ivy explained, carefully unwrapping it. Inside was a new notebook, its cover emblazoned with colorful stars and the words, "Ivy's Stories," in elegant script. "Presentation?" Dr. Evelyn questioned. Marcus grinned. "Ivy's been working on something special all week. She wouldn't even let me see it." The family settled on the blankets as Ivy took center stage, Waffles sitting attentively at her feet. She held Button in one hand and her new notebook in the other. "I wrote a story," she announced, her voice clear and confident. "It's about a little girl who thought she had to be quiet to be safe, but then learned that using her voice was the bravest thing of all." As Ivy began to read her simple yet powerful story, Dr. Evelyn felt a surge of professional pride and personal joy. This was why she had become a doctor, not just to heal physical ailments, but to help restore voices that had been silenced by circumstance or fear. When Ivy finished reading, she looked directly at Dr. Evelyn. "I'm going to read this to my class for show and tell next week. My teacher says it might help other kids who feel scared to speak up." "That's a wonderful idea," Dr. Evelyn said warmly. "Your story might help more people than you know." As they enjoyed their picnic, the conversation flowed easily among them. No more heavy silences, no more secrets weighing down the air between them. Marcus shared news about joining the school newspaper. Mr. Miller talked about his new local driving route that allowed him to be home every night, and Mrs. Miller described her promotion at work that came with more regular hours. When it was time to say goodbye, Dr. Evelyn knelt to Ivy's level. "I'm so proud of you, Ivy. You've helped your whole family find their voices." Ivy smiled, looking down at Button in her arms. Then, in a moment that symbolized how far she had come, she handed the teddy bear to Dr. Evelyn. "Button doesn't have to talk for me anymore," she said clearly. "I know how to use my voice now." Dr. Evelyn accepted the beloved stuffed animal, understanding the profound significance of this gesture. "Are you sure you want me to have him?" Ivy nodded. "He can help you listen to other kids who don't know how to say the hard things yet." As the Miller family walked away together through the golden autumn afternoon, Ivy between her parents, Marcus beside them, Uncle Caleb following with Waffles, Dr. Evelyn held Button gently, making a silent promise to honor Ivy's gift by continuing to listen for the unspoken words of children whose stories were still waiting to be heard. In the distance, Ivy's laugh rang out, bright, clear, and completely uninhibited. It was the sound of a child who no longer needed to hide in silence, who had discovered that her voice was not just allowed but celebrated, who had found her place in a family that had learned to listen even to its quietest member. And in that moment, under the vast open sky, surrounded by the vibrant colors of fall, Ivy's journey from silence to self-expression was beautifully, triumphantly complete.